Good morning once again, and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez on tap at the White House today. At this hour, the following events are closed to the press. Sometimes that does change at the last second. If it does, we'll be here for it. As of right now, at 10:15, the president will participate in a photo opportunity with United States attorneys. That's at the East Room of the White House. At 11 this morning, the president receives his intelligence briefing at the Oval Office. And tonight at 5:30 Eastern, the president participates in a policy meeting at the Oval Office. All three events are currently closed to the press. If anything opens up, we'll bring it to you live or at least upload it on various social media channels. Also today at 11 a.m. Eastern, the Department of Health and Human Services is holding a Make America Healthy Again policy celebration. And at 11 as well this morning, there is a Department of Homeland Security press conference from the World Trade Center from One World Trade in New York City. We'll carry that live. So those events happening at about 11 this morning. Of course, we'll be monitoring a lot of news stories out there, including that incident, deadly incident that happened yesterday, where a motorist nearly struck an ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That ICE agent opened fire, killing the driver. Of course, a lot of people talking about that story as well. Meantime, we have a lot to get to. Let's go now first to a recent interview with Monetary Gold's Scott Cheney, being interviewed by Robert McNeely right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Our dear friend Scott Cheney, he's a senior trade executive over at Monetary Gold, a group that's really focused on diversifying not only your income and savings and securities, but wealth and what it means today. Scott, Happy New Year. Let's discuss the pricing of gold and silver with all of the current events. This is not a slow news cycle by any means, jumping right into 2026.
Happy New Year. My goodness, has it been a crazy 2025? And I think we're even in for a better 2026 right now with gold and silver. By the way, I hope you had a great Christmas, a great New Year. And it is starting off the new year with a bang here. But gold right now, just going over a little history on how gold has performed throughout the year. In the last 30 days, gold's gone up right around 7%. The last 6 months, gold has gone up over 35%. And in the last year, gold has gone up 68%. Now, we recommend our customers to hold for 5 to 10 years. If you held gold for 5 years, right now we're looking at 142%. And I mention every time I'm on the show with you, Robert, about silver. And silver right now is changing price, and it's constant. But in the last 30 days, and I know I've been on the show longer than that, in the last 30 days, silver has gone up over 34%. So it has outperformed gold. Okay, in the last 6 months, silver has performed at 121%. And if you're looking at the last year, silver has gone up 169%. Time and time again, I want to emphasize this. Silver right now is such a strong asset to own. And diving into that, there's so much news on silver. We obviously saw it hit an all-time high just recently. It's at $78.15. And again, we do not see it slowing down. We believe it's going to get more and more expensive as it's getting more and more difficult to purchase right now.
Now, can we discuss as well how China might affect the gold and silver process? Because I cannot remember in my lifetime gold and silver reaching these numbers and so quickly. Does it have to do with anything involving Venezuela as well, and the apprehension of Nicolas Maduro and the American Armada in the Caribbean just outside of the country?
Well, we spoke about Venezuela, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago, last month, to where we talked about that being tied to BRICS nation with the oil. And I know obviously the shipping the drugs back and forth was a major issue for the United States. But you have Russia and China trying to protect Venezuela in certain areas right there. And so that's all tied to BRICS nation, which creates chaos where they want to step away from the US dollar. But now when we're looking at China right now, and this actually came out on New Year's Day, okay, as of January 1st, 2026, it's very important. China implemented a new export licensing system for silver. Okay, so what that means is it's replacing earlier quota arrangements with a tighter licensing requirement regime. And so what I mean by that is it's limited to about 44 companies right now that actually meet this strict criteria to where they could export goods and export silver across the continent. Okay, so China also, and this is news on silver right now, China also officially elevated silver to a strategic material status, signaling its importance on domestic industry and long-term planning. So where do we go from here? Well, what does that really mean for our customers? It means that silver over time could be a very hard asset to buy. Our country right now, we are running out of silver. So who are the people that are going to really be feeling this? How does it affect investors? Okay, and how does it affect manufacturers right now? Well, if future really, what it ties to when it comes to manufacturers, it ties to the tightening of solar and EV manufacturers. The electronics right now, it's at high risk. What it benefits physical silver holders. So if you own precious metals right now in silver, it's going to benefit you. It's going to get harder to get solar panels, AI electronics. Those are going to be harder to gain access to. And as China tightens up their exports right now, we believe there's going to be a major shift in the pricing with silver and with gold. So I knew I threw a lot out there with all your listeners right now, but China in all tightened its export licensing. Okay. And now silver is going to be difficult to come through the channels when gaining access to that silver. It affects people in the manufacturing industry, but if you have purchased precious metals, it could really impact and benefit holders and investors because of the price of silver rising right now. Now, past performance is not indicative of future opportunity. I can't read a crystal ball, and I don't believe in that. But what I can tell you is that precious metals, it is a privilege to own it right now. And if you don't have any and you have money sitting in the bank, the US dollar is dwindling. It is going down. We were $38 trillion in debt every 90 days. Previously, we were adding $1 trillion to our debt. That went from 90 days to now 71 days. And that number is even climbing right now, and we're almost $39 trillion in debt. So we see this as a shifting in our economy. And this is why our phones are ringing off the hook right now because people want to buy silver. And I will tell you, it's a very high demand right now.
It's a fascinating topic. Can you break down, Scott, the process and procedures for those to obtain it if they don't have gold and silver? Because it's, as you explained, becoming more and more of a necessity for each American household to at least look at these great possibilities instead of it simply being a luxury like it might have been only 2 decades ago or even before that. I think right now in 2026, gold and silver really need to be part of your portfolio.
That's exactly it. And so when you reach out to us and you call that number below, what you'll find is really people who are at risk right now are also paper investors of silver, meaning they actually don't own the physical gold and silver possession. The metals that you own physically right now, my goodness, as it gets harder and harder to buy, the pricing of that typically goes up. It's a hedge against the dollar. It's known as a safe haven asset that I've spoken about so much. So what you could do is you could call that number. Typically, I could answer the phone. Another person in our office could answer the phone. We're going to go over your portfolio. What exactly do you have, and how could we help you? We're going to go over, is it cash that you're looking to protect, or is it a retirement account that you're looking to protect? Once we find that out, we can understand, yes, this is a person that we could actually help. We'll get you over to another person, or you can work directly with me, and we'll go over your portfolio and see how precious metals can not only impact you in a positive way, but keep you safe as well. So that's really how it works. You're going to get a live agent, a live sales specialist, or portfolio manager to walk you through these steps, though. There are different asset classes that perform in different ways. So what I like to say, imagine like you walk into a car dealership and you're like, I want to buy a car. Well, what type of car would you like to buy? There's a lot of, same as silver and gold, there's a lot of different asset classes, and those asset classes, they perform in different ways. So it's very important for us to have a clear understanding of what you're looking to accomplish, whether it's short-term or long-term, so that we could help put you into the right asset that will accomplish your goals. And that's what we'll do. And so call that number now. There is really, if I don't know a better time right now than to own gold and silver, Robert. I mean, it is really serious right now. We see the dollar in very bad shape, and you see commodities going up. And so people are calling, they are buying, and I recommend, this is something that everyone should own right now.
Oh, it makes so much sense in 2026. Part of your New Year's resolution, or if you simply want to acquire that next property, or even give off that generational wealth so your family can sustain any storm, literal or figuratively speaking, on the horizon, especially financially, because so much out there happening in the world, changing on a daily basis. Scott Cheney, the Senior Trade Executive for Monetary Gold. Please visit RSBN4thegold.com. And what do you have to lose? Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide. Look at your options, and Scott and his team are there to answer the phone for you. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining us again on the right side of history.
Hey, as always, Robert, it's a pleasure to be here. God bless you. I wish you and the team the best, and thank you for reporting on real news.
And thank you for your partnership with Monetary Gold. It means the world to us. God bless you, and we will see you again very soon.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, great interview there by RSBN host Robert McNeely interviewing Scott Cheney of Monetary Gold. All right, it's 10:14 Eastern time. We have a couple things happening at the top of the hour. The Department of Homeland Security will be holding a press conference from One World Trade in New York City. And then on top of that, the Department of Health and Human Services is also holding an event at about 11 a.m. The priority today, of course, is with the DHS, with the Department of Homeland Security. So we'll have that live for you at the top of the hour. We also have a live interview and a live guest coming up at about 10:30 Eastern time. In the meantime, let's go to a couple of our sponsors, including All Family Pharmacy. All Family Pharmacy is helping change how people access medications by removing many of the barriers found in traditional pharmacies. So instead of waiting weeks for appointments or dealing with insurance complications, customers can actually order online, have their request reviewed by a licensed physician, and then receive medications shipped directly to your door. So All Family Pharmacy offers a wide selection, including antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, blood pressure medications, methylene blue, NAD+, and more. So this model is especially helpful for people who value convenience and timely access to the medications they may need. So if you'd like an easier way to get your medications, all you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code. You'll get that 10% off today. Again, All Family Pharmacy. Let's return to Monetary Gold. As you heard there from Scott, Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm. Many now say gold can actually climb to $7,000 per troy ounce. And that's even before President Trump finishes his term. So It's not wild speculation. It's experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers are tracking those indicators out there. So if you'd like to reach out to Monetary Gold, get that info kit. You see it right there on your screen. You can call that number you see on your screen. It's 888-617-7994, or you can visit rsbnforthegold.com. This is before the next major move in the gold market. Of course, results can vary. Always consult with your financial and tax advisors before investing. Great sponsor here, Monetary Gold on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Same thing with Chapter. Let's take a moment to talk about Medicare. Most Medicare agents push Medicare Advantage plans even when they're not right for you because they make more money doing it. That's why we like Chapter. They don't just share the amazing benefits of Medicare Advantage. They explain the pros and cons of all your Medicare options: Original Medicare, Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and Part D. So Chapter supports you in comparing every plan against your specific healthcare needs because they want to ensure you have the best coverage for you. So one Chapter member named Jill said her advisor presented options she didn't even see on Medicare.gov on that website. And in many cases, Chapter actually saves people more than $1,100 a year by getting them on the right plan. So if you're on Medicare or will be soon, call Chapter to learn about enrollment options and find ways to save on your healthcare costs. It's free and quick, and they review your options in under 20 minutes. Most people wish they actually would have called sooner. So for free and unbiased Medicare help, dial 833-438-3359 to speak with our trusted partner, Chapter, or go to askchapter.org/RSBN. All right, it is now 10:17 this morning on this Thursday, January 8th. What we know is that there has been a press conference, of course, with the Department of Homeland Security within that 24/7 news cycle about that deadly incident in Minnesota, of course, where that driver nearly struck an ICE agent. That ICE agent returned fire, killing that driver. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that press conference, the latest press conference with the Department of Homeland Security. Also, again, at the top of the hour, there will be another Department of Homeland Security press conference, this time from One World Trade in New York City. So we'll have that here live for you. But in the meantime, let's return to DHS and the Secretary, Kristi Noem.
All of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the President today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frye's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frye refuse to protect Minnesotans and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before, and your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Frye called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand too on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
Can you clarify whether he was hit before or after the gunshot was fired?
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate. No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer-involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decisions.
Secretary, have ICE operations paused because of what happened today?
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you give us any insight into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis. Over here.
Do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer used his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
Okay, so that press conference was from within that 24/7 news cycle just yesterday with the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Now, we do know that there will be another DHS press conference in about 33 minutes from now from One World Trade in New York City. So another press conference starting at about 11 a.m. We'll have that live as soon as it starts. Also, around the same time, the Department of Health and Human Services is holding a policy celebration event. Depending on which one starts, of course, we're going to go with the DHS one, as that's a priority to cover that for us today. And then we can also most likely cover the HHS one as well. But in the meantime, let's go through a few of our sponsors before we bring in our next live guest. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy. You know, All Family Pharmacy is here to help change how people access medications by removing many of the barriers found in traditional pharmacies. So instead of, waiting for weeks for appointments or dealing with insurance complications, customers can actually order online. You can have your request reviewed by a licensed physician and receive medications shipped directly to your door. And they offer a wide selection, including antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, blood pressure medications, methylene blue, NAD+, and the list goes on. So the model is especially helpful for people who value convenience and timely access to the medications they may need. So if you want an easier way to get your medications, all you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use that code RSBN10 to save 10% today. Let's move to our next sponsor here as we're approaching the bottom of the hour on this Thursday, January 8th. Angel Paste out of Spring, Texas, angelpaste.com. If you use the RSBN promo code at checkout, you get quite the percentage off. A lot of great products to check out there. So just go to angelpaste.com to check them out. If you have an anniversary coming up or just are looking for some skincare and some good products, you have it right there. Angelpaste.com. They hire military veterans and have been a long-time sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to one more sponsor before we continue on. You see Kalshi right there. So if you're looking to bet, trade, or just check out various polls, you can do so at kalshi.com, or you can download the app if you'd like. And the third option, you have that QR code right there on your screen. So all sorts of topics out there, from weather to sports to faith, politics, you name it, it's most likely on there. Check it out, kalshi.com/RSBN. All right, it is now 10:30 on the East Coast, 7:30 out there on the West Coast. And thank you so much for watching from coast to coast, including the Mountain Time Zone, the Central Time Zone, and anywhere else you may be watching across planet Earth, as the internet is pretty fascinating, isn't it? You can have this feed live anywhere across the country, across the earth. All right, so we are 8 days into the new year, and I'm going to go over a little bit later a number of the big stories and the big things happening throughout the country. One of the big things, of course, is November 3rd. The midterm elections will take place. And speaking of the midterms, Securing our elections is of high priority, specifically maybe a United States voter ID and proof of citizenship, same-day voting, all on paper ballots. It would be great to see that, right? Well, let's go to someone that knows a lot about elections and does great work in Pennsylvania as a state senator, of course, a military veteran. Let's go to State Senator Doug Mastriano joining us from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going, my friend? Thanks for having me on, brother.
Definitely. Great to see you again here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You know, back in 2020, you were on this network a lot with a lot of meetings going on with what happened in 2020. What is it like? I mean, now we're 5 years, 6 years into since then, and the midterms are coming up. Your thoughts about securing our elections just for free and fair elections out there?
Just to refresh people's memory, and thanks again for having me on. So a lot of people have forgotten, and thank you for reminding us. On November 25th, 2020, I hosted the first of the nation's voting integrity hearings on the 2020 presidential election. That came about, Matthew, after literally thousands of people reached out to me in the aftermath of that election, complaining about shenanigans, potential fraud, things that happened to them personally or to their family members. One 80-some-year-old lady, the first time she was voting, if I recollect her testimony, got to the voting station. Oh, you already voted, go away. She's like, no, I didn't. I haven't voted in years. And so we raised questions. And in the end, from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I challenged the media. You got 13 witnesses you heard from. This is a thumbnail. Do your job. I pleaded with them, but firmly. I wasn't begging. Like, do your job. And instead of doing the job and looking at the 13 complaints that I had out there, the 13 eyewitnesses or victims, they just attacked me and anyone else involved with the hearing, as being an election denier. You're going to overturn democracy. I mean, all this BS. So bad, so that, that many of us were hauled before the J6 committee. I called it Nancy Pelosi's Inquisition. By the way, I sued her and won. The media didn't pick up on that here, but I walked out and didn't go to jail. I sued her because it was a fraudulent committee in my mind. Jack Smith got a hold of a bunch of us simply for asking questions in our constitutional role of senators. And so what happened after that? Well, and the people I'm talking about in the Pennsylvania Senate, they're gone now. This is not besmirching the current leadership team. The old leadership team, a lot of talk, a lot of hand wringing. I'm like, let's just do an audit. We can audit. Let's audit 3 counties. A lot of dithering and no, it's going to cost so much, blah, blah, blah. And people want it fixed. And so went down to Arizona in June of 2021. And of course, that was a media circus. CNN was running. It was 100 degrees outside. They're running, feigning they're tracking Mastriano, but we were like blocks away. It was a bunch of, it's propaganda. It's show. It's, theatrics. I saw what Arizona was doing. Hand count, 4 eyes on. I mean, cameras everywhere, custody of the ballots, everything. Came back, had a plan. I chaired a committee that had some oversight of elections. And so I asked my committee members, will you support a subpoena? We'll subpoena Philadelphia, a Democrat county, York County, Republican county, Tioga County, one of the most Republican counties in the state. So 1 Democrat county and 2 Republican. Just to begin the process. And the leader of the Senate then, who's now gone, he called me up because I can't tell you not to hold that vote, but I strongly urge you not to. What? Why? Really? It's our oversight. And so I'm like, no, I'm doing the vote tomorrow. So he called up all the Republicans in the committee, told them not to show up. They called me. Is this too much, Matt?
Not at all, because this is exactly what we want to hear, because this is the kind of thing that people want to censor people like you. And we don't do that here at Right Side. So continue on with the story. And then also on top of that, as you continue, share with us your thoughts about what can be done to secure our elections.
Thank you. I tell this story to let people know why we are in this position. This is happening from a Republican, the old leader of the Senate. And so I call all my committee members up. No, we're holding the vote. Don't listen to that guy. And so then the next day, I'm on with Steve Bannon and laying out my plan. And then I get notification from Harrisburg that my staff in Harrisburg has been removed, technically fired from me. I am kicked out of this Republican caucus. I am stripped of my committee powers. And if that's not enough, because the only power I had as a committee chair, that's it, right? To hold the vote. And then he locks me out of the conference room that we would hold the vote in. And so that's it. I was out of caucus. I was no longer part of the Republican strategy sessions at all for about 7, 8 months. And so nothing happened. So you asked what's going on in Pennsylvania. I tried. I did and I paid a big price, a huge price for that. Not only with Jack Smith and Nancy Pelosi, but also with my own colleagues who are now gone, stripping me of my powers. I'm a very popular senator in my district. I get reelected with 70% of the vote here. So none of this makes sense. And I was just doing my job. So Pennsylvania, it's going to be a hard year. We had to overcome all of that in 2024 to help Dave McCormick win, and then, of course, help Donald Trump win. So we have to overcompensate because there's extreme fraud across the state. This means lawyers everywhere, especially Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. I mean, eyes on everywhere with speed dial to judges and all that kind of stuff. We pulled it off because we got the Republicans out, in the Republican counties, and we had eyes on in the Democrat counties. But it's very, very tough. So to answer your question now, with all that story, Matthew, thank you for letting me tell that. We're in a bad way in the midterms here, and we're going to need the level of excitement that we had for Donald Trump to help our congressmen and women to get reelected in Pennsylvania. And I don't know that we're going to be able to achieve that.
So we have to do that. But on top of it, let's have the voter ID. Can we at least get voter ID, let alone same-day voting, paper ballots, right?
Yeah, so the new leadership team came in after this, and they're decent people, they're good people, and they came up. They came up with a plan. We can't get the governor to sign this into law. It's a Democrat, and I tried in 22 to become the governor, and all the voting shenanigans. Any mathematician that was watching the results, anytime I spiked, my opponent spiked. There was never a time, Matt, when we overlapped. The Republicans reported, and Mastriano has a bump now. It was a weird algorithm. I do hope, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit trail. I do hope what's going on in Venezuela does open the eyes or opens information on what some of the conspiracy things that we heard. That would change everything. But it's going to be really hard. We have to get out in huge numbers, and this includes some of my team from 2022. They're still motivated, and so during Donald Trump's election, they had 300 volunteers come out to drive the Amish and Old Order Mennonite who don't use cars, to drive them to polls on voting day. And the reality is, too, we do have early voting in Pennsylvania, and whether you like it or not, it's irrelevant. That's the environment we have here. So if there's even a 1% chance you're not going to be able to vote on voting day, just go to the courthouse and submit your ballot early. That's how we overcome it. Donald Trump's team, I think, acquired 36% of the early voting, and the Democrats just sweep that. You need at least 34% to win Pennsylvania at the statewide, and that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. And for the swing state, for Pennsylvania to go to President Trump this past year, it also went to President Trump in the 2016 election. For some reason, sir, it didn't go in 2020. We know what happened there. So moving forward, what do you think about the messaging for the people, right, when it comes to this midterm election? My opinion is, let's have freedom on the ballot. Let's have the Constitution on the ballot. Would you like to elaborate?
I would. Freedom was on the ballot in 2020, and I hold that voting integrity hearing. I hosted it. It wasn't my committee. I hosted it in Gettysburg, and I still have questions. I have a lot of questions, and I will note, Matt, that Donald Trump posted a segment of that hearing just 2 weeks ago. It got me excited. I was like, oh, there's Rudy Giuliani and Phil Waldron, opening up the testimony. And they were serious allegations. There were serious allegations made, and we don't have any answers because the media is in the pocket of the Democrat Party, and I'm sick of it. They're worthless. I was with a journalist a couple of days ago in Harrisburg, a young person. I'm like, you guys have lost your credibility. And I told the story of the shutdown, the disinformation on the COVID and the shots and all these policies Tom Wolf had, that you can only have a beer if you had a hot dog. Without a hot dog, you'll get COVID, but only till 10 o'clock. I mean, it was so.
Wait, hold on. Let's stop there for a second. I did not hear that one.
What?
Wait, so who said that?
At the time, Governor Wolf never was a governor more appropriately named. So he shut down all the bars and all the legions. So you couldn't go and get an adult beverage. But then our Secretary of Health, the great Dr. Levine, came up with this scheme here. We approve you getting an adult beverage, but only if you wear the mask from the lobby to your seat, and don't take it off until you're seated. And if you have a hot dog or any kind of food with your beer or whiskey, COVID will pass by you, like Passover. It'll pass over you. But if you get up to go to you get up to go to the bathroom, you're dead without a mask. But only for 10 o'clock. After 10 o'clock, you're dead even with food.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
you can't make this crap up. And then the next week, Wolf comes out with Levine, like, okay, we have worked to deal with COVID. Now you can have an adult beverage and a hot dog together until 11 o'clock. But after 11 o'clock, you're dead even with the hot dog. I mean, I had a stand-up routine about this. It was just so ridiculous. But the media, they're foolish. They were just amplifying that propaganda. So the Republican Senate, the new leadership team came in, and we're going to do a constitutional amendment for voter ID. Woohoo! It was the first bill we passed a couple of years ago. And then the House, which had a one-seat majority, one of the Republicans flipped, it joined the Democrats, and the constitutional amendment died. That was our only hope. So our hope now, and I'm pleading with the U.S. Senate in D.C., we need Donald Trump working together with the legislature in D.C. to mandate for federal elections. So if there's a congressman on the ballot or a U.S. senator, that to compel voter ID at the national level. That's our only hope to safeguard our elections in Pennsylvania at this point.
I mean, just call it the United States voter identification, the voter ID. I mean, all of those countries out there that have voter ID, can we at least get that in our country? And then it would be great to have proof of citizenship as well, because then those voter IDs might get handed over to illegal immigrant, the whole nine. So there's a lot that needs to be done, but we have to do it, because at the end of the day, sir, the reason why I believe you served in our military, and the reason why you ran for governor, and the reason why you're in politics, and the reason why you're on right side is for the freedom of this nation, isn't it?
Exactly. 30 years in the Army, and I'm no hero, but I served with heroes. But that's all I wanted to do, Matt, was to be a soldier. There's a couple of years I flirted with the Marine Corps too. My brothers were Marines, but Army all my life. I hit mandatory retirement date. In my third tour in Afghanistan, I did look in the mirror and I was like, "Man, you're aging quick out here. This is a young man business." And I had a sweet job lined up. Look, all my experience planning strategies, taking down nations, con plans that you can just baffle your mind, helping build a strategy to defend our northern and eastern European allies from Russia. Interesting, before it got ugly out there. And had a sweet job lined up. And I was challenged by a young man. I was doing an interview, my last interview in uniform about Russia. And off air, I'm like, what a waste. I was really feeling kind of down. What a waste. 4 years away from home, all these combat deployments, and my country's falling apart. And this young guy looked over at me off air and said, "Well, Colonel, do something about it." And that challenge from that young man's like, okay, you could go right off into the sunset, have lots of fun in Europe, and good times, rewarding yourself and your wife for your service and all that. But no, you need either stop complaining or get into politics and try to make a difference. And so that's what I've tried to done. But when Matt, and you know the deal, when you stand with integrity, I'm not a perfect person. I struggle with sins every day. But by God's grace, I press forward. But when you walk in that integrity, you do suffer. I mean, I told you that brief story about dealing with the old Senate leadership here and being punished for simply wanting to have a vote on subpoenaing voting records, our constitutional job of oversight. And there's always a price to pay, but it's been an honor to serve in Pennsylvania, to be the candidate in 2022, and to be one of the leaders to reopen the state. And now we have this grassroots campaign, and we're in a conundrum in Pennsylvania because the state party has decided to endorse somebody in September, more than a year out from the election, clearing the field for governor. And how do you motivate the grassroots now when the party insiders have handpicked somebody? And so I think we're going to have a hard time with that as well now. So we're our own worst enemy. When I was assigned in Nuremberg, Germany during the Cold War, one of the sergeant major put on we had a giant mirror on the wall before you went to the parade field to check out your uniform. The days you had to starch everything and shine everything. And he put on there, "Know your enemy," and you're looking at yourself. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy, especially Republican Party.
No, hey, and a lot of people are saying, I agree with you. Amen to that. And For those of you that are just joining us, this is the Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano, of course, military veteran, great patriot. You know, what I think a lot of people like about you, sir, is that you tell it like it is. And a lot of the system and a lot of the uniparty and a lot of the stuff that is against we the people, they don't like that. They just don't like it. So that's that might be why, you know, you've dealt with so much, as you mentioned, with integrity. Let's talk about a specific couple issues that have happened in the 24/7 news cycle. And first of all, thank you for spending the time with us. Can I get your reaction on the fraud discovered in Minnesota? And also, I spoke with Kate Monroe, the VetCom CEO out of California. She said California is 100 million times worse than Minnesota for the fraud. And then also yesterday's deadly incident after that motorist nearly struck an ICE agent who opened fire, killing the driver. So your thoughts about the fraud in Minnesota, what needs to be done there, and then your take on that incident in Minneapolis yesterday.
Yeah, I am shocked by the level of fraud. We're talking potentially billions of dollars, by people that we have welcomed from Somalia, mostly. That's what it looks like. So Somali immigrants, we welcome them to our country, and they're stealing and defrauding our government and us. They're defrauding taxpayers, most of this federal money. So this is nationwide, and apparently funneling a lot of money back to Somalia. There needs to be jail time. There needs to be people need to return the money. They need to be, brought down, their houses, whatever. That one dude that came out that runs, another fake child care facility who had a $3,000 glasses on. I wish I could afford that. I even can't do that. And there needs to be re-immigration. They need to be sent home in shame after we get the money back from them. You can't do this. They violated our trust. When my grandparents came here from Sicily, there was no handouts. You had to stand on your own. And so, my great grandpa worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad in Philadelphia. I mean, the lowest job you could find, he was running, rails on the tracks. And it was what it was. But, he worked hard and eventually got a house as an immigrant, no handouts. Why are we giving handouts to these people anyway? If you're coming to our country, you need to be able to stand up on your own feet here. Why should I subsidize somebody coming over here and potentially taking jobs from other Americans? So I want to see jail time. As to the shooting incident here, I blame this on the mayor of Minneapolis. I blame this on the governor, Mr. Waltz, for the rhetoric that they've been spreading about law enforcement and especially ICE. I mean, we're watching the left-wing media and these left-wing clowns, these politicians here, stoking hatred. And I think that he is complicit in motivating that lady to blocking traffic. She turned her car in a way to block traffic. I listened to some of the interviews of the witnesses. She was deliberately blocking ICE traffic, and when they try to get her to move, she's going to take off and take an officer with her, and you just don't do that. If what arrogance? What would happen to you and I if we accosted a police officer here? There'd be no vigils. They'd be like, you're stupid for doing that. Don't mess around.
Yeah, I mean, it was tragic to see it unfold in that way. But to your point, the video is proof. And that's the thing. Evidence and receipts, whether it's when it comes to the elections, when it comes to the video from yesterday, and it comes down to this, doesn't it? Truth versus lies. And then I'd like for you to share a last word, just talking about that's what it's all about, right? Freedom and tyranny, truth and lies.
Yeah, thank you for that. In 2020, I'm a state senator, represent about 250,000 people in the south central part of Pennsylvania, Chambersburg, Gettysburg area. And why do I have a national voice? Because we stood up against the mandates from Governor Wolf and now Shapiro. He was the attorney general then. And our motto was walk as free people, John 8:36. If Jesus set you free, you're free indeed. And our motto was, you have to choose, walk as free people. And then I explained, you have to choose. You're being told to mask up. You're being told to get that booster to keep your job. You're being told to shut up. You're being told that it's okay for Levine to take the sick and put them in the elder care facilities where like 70 and 80% of the deaths were as a result of Levine's policies. And I'm like, you have to speak the truth. You will suffer. You'll be mocked, yelled at. You might lose your job as well. It's your choice. If you want to get the booster, get it. You want the vid, get it. I mean, do whatever you want to do, but don't tell me what to do. And so I would go on, we'd have 10,000 people show up at these rallies in Harrisburg. It was amazing. That's why I have this voice across the state here. It's more than just a state senator. And we have to remember where we came from. I'm like, this is far easier what we're going through, and it was hard. It was very dramatic. People are losing their jobs, but you're not being shot at by an Iraqi, Republican Guard. You're not being, sniped at by a Taliban in Afghanistan. And think about what our fathers and our grandfathers gave up in World War I and World War II, the Civil War, and you got to remember who we are, especially Pennsylvania, where our nation was birthed by William Penn. William Penn prophesied in 1682 that we would be the seed of the nation. He had the longest peace treaty with the Indians. There was no forts, no walls until the French Indian War 100 plus years later. Freedom of speech. He went to jail 6 times because he talked about Jesus and belonging to the wrong church. And he found that the Bill of Rights are basically William Penn's ideas. So I'm like, Pennsylvanians, remember who you are. This is where the light of liberty was lit in 1776, a new birth of freedom in 1863, Gettysburg. And then, of course, 2001, Todd Beamer. What did he say? Let's roll. And so stand up, be free.
And everybody that's in that state, I believe there's about 12 million residents in Pennsylvania, give or take a few numbers here and there, but the ones that are common sense patriots resonate and agree with you, sir. I've seen it. I've been to your events in Pennsylvania. And I was going to say that was the last point, but the last point is Gettysburg. When I go there and I stand near where Abraham Lincoln spoke that Gettysburg address, I know you've been there as well. Can you believe the history on that soil for our country, for a country that would be of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the land? Your thoughts?
It is holy ground. I used to give a lot of tours there when I was in the Army, like 50 a year. And one day I came back after a 17-hour return trip from the Baltics, from Estonia. It was 17 hours of travel. And I'm just like, and I agreed to give a tour the next day. And I'm like, man, you're an idiot. But then as I go down Hare Ridge and start going up McPherson Ridge, there's the monuments. And, it just hit me. And the jet lag went away. And I just had a great time on the battlefield giving a tour. But, when Lincoln gave his address on 19 November 1863, he said, it was a brilliant 242-word speech. It was magnificent. We remember it. It's so historic. But at the end, he goes, rather it is for us, the living, to attend to the unfinished work. Benjamin Franklin was asked during the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787 by Mrs. Powell. She ran up to him during the debates of what kind of government we're going to have. Because, well, Mr. Franklin, do we have a monarchy or a republic? And he said, as everyone knows, a republic, man, if you can keep it. And I think Lincoln reflected those words, rather it is for us to attend to the unfinished work. So, every generation has to maintain freedom and liberty. You have to choose to, because governments tend to want to take your freedoms away, want to oppress you, want to put more rules and regulations on you to control your activities. And Lincoln is right. And so we're reminded on the battlefield, and that's why history is so important. Look at the graves, look at the sacrifice and the cost. 50,000 casualties on a 3-day battle, bloodiest place in North America. And we have to remember who we are. And we want to maintain that freedom. Like Reagan said, Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation from losing our freedoms. And it's up to us, this generation, to stand up and say, no, we will not be ruled by tyrants. And in Pennsylvania, it worked. We actually were the only state in the nation that passed a constitutional amendment, 53% of the vote, that despite everything rigged against us here, that stripped the governor of his powers. Now the governor cannot shut us down, perpetually or eternally, because the people rose up. And so I'm so proud of Pennsylvania for doing that.
Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano, great patriot. I agree on everything you just said there, sir, and I'm sure millions of Americans do, as well as they will be able to watch this either live or on replay. Sir, thank you again for joining us from Pennsylvania. Hope to have you back here on Right Side soon.
Thank you. I'm honored to be with you again. Great to see you, my friend. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you. All right, it's 10:54 Thursday, January 8th. As many know across this country and across Pennsylvania, when you speak truth and you have the context of history that matches with what's going on today, it's great to interview people like the state senator, Doug Mastriano, in my home state of Pennsylvania. All right, it's about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. We have a couple of events coming up here shortly. Before I let you know about those, let's talk about a couple sponsors, and then we'll get right back into live coverage of what's happening today on this Thursday, January 8th. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy. All Family Pharmacy is helping changing how people access medications by removing many of the barriers found in traditional pharmacies. So instead of waiting weeks for appointments or dealing with insurance complications, customers can order online, and you can have your request reviewed by a licensed physician, and you'll receive medication shipped directly to your door. So they offer this wide selection, including antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. There's blood pressure medications, methylene blue, NAD+. That list goes on. This model is especially helpful for people who value convenience and timely access to the medications they may need. So if you want to have an easier way to get your medications, go right there to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use that RSBN 10 promo code. All right, it's 10:56. We'll go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for streaming in. Let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN. Of course, a lot of great products there. More than 2,000 products to select from. High quality, great products. And you know what? The support of Mike Lindell, always good. Mike Lindell, talk about great patriots, another one running for governor in Minnesota, and of course has this great company as well, mypillow.com/RSBN. Check it out, order what you'd like. If there's a few things that you've had in the past and you want to get some new sheets or new whatever, you can, mypillow.com/RSBN. If you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, just text RSBN to 801-801. or go to rsbnetwork.com/donate as we grow, as we expand here at this conservative network. We've been around since 2015. It's now 2026. This will be the 11th year that Right Side Broadcasting Network has been a thing around, a conservative news network, grassroots from the start, back in the day, covering President Trump's speeches in its entirety, showing the crowds all the things that you guys grew accustomed to. Obviously, we're not always covering rallies now because the president is in the White House, but there's a lot of conservative news out there, and we love to look through the perspective that you guys do because we're all about we the people here at Right Side. And of course, within conservative media as a whole, looking live at Washington, D.C. right now. So this is what's on tap for the White House today. At this hour, the following events are closed to the press. So the president already participated in a photo opportunity with United States attorneys from the East Room of the White House. In just a few minutes, the president will receive his intelligence briefing. Again, these are closed to the press currently. Usually the intelligence briefings, of course, are always closed to the press. And then later at 5:30 Eastern, the president participates in a policy meeting. That's at the Oval Office, also listed currently closed to the press. Sometimes they do open up and we're able to show that live or at least upload the video on our various social media platforms. We'll track it. As long as you track it with us, we'll report and give you the information that we see happening. Also today at 11 o'clock, so in 2 minutes, if it starts on time, the Department of Health and Human Services is holding a Make America Healthy Again policy celebration. Also at 11 a.m., we'll be going live to the Department of Homeland Security press conference from One World Trade Center in New York. We'll carry that again live. Not sure if that's going to be about yesterday's incident in Minnesota or if there's something moving forward that we're going to hear from DHS. That's coming up any minute from now. In the meantime, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. It is 11 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, 8 o'clock out there on the West Coast. Thanks so much for watching from coast to coast, and of course the Central Time Zone and the Mountain Time Zone. And those of you watching in maybe Hawaii or Alaska or anywhere else across the earth, thanks so much for live streaming in. We are just getting word that at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, we will start a new broadcast. At 12 o'clock Eastern Time, a new broadcast for an event at the White House. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt and the Vice President will be holding a press conference at 1 Eastern. So again, for those of you just joining us, this live broadcast that you're on right now will show, as soon as we see it start, the Department of Homeland Security press conference from New York City at One World Trade. So you stick with us here if you'd like to watch that DHS press conference. And then at 12 o'clock, in about an hour, we'll start a new live stream. So you can click on that if you'd like as well. And then later that broadcast will be this just announced about 45 minutes ago that White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, are holding an event, a press conference at 1 o'clock. So again, you stay with us for this DHS one, and then we'll start a new one, a new live stream at 12 for that event, the Leavitt and Vance presser. So we'll have that here for you. So a lot developing on this Thursday, January 8th, a lot going on. We're tracking with it. We're going with the flow. And as they say, it's a fluid situation. So we'll track with all the news that's going on out there. Speaking of the news, let's go with some of the notable days and dates coming up here in 2026. So we're 8 days into the new year, of course. Let's go over some of these dates here. So on January 21st and the 22nd, President Trump will be overseas in Davos, Switzerland, attending the World Economic Forum and speaking there. The president will also speak in February on the 24th. He'll deliver the State of the Union address on February 24th. CPAC is in late March. No word yet if the president will speak at the conference. Usually he does, so he may be speaking towards the end of March at CPAC. From there, on May 7th, it's the National Day of Prayer. Of course, there's always an event surrounding that, an important event as we go to God on that day, but hopefully that's an everyday thing. Then on June 14th, on Flag Day, there will be a UFC fight on the South Lawn of the White House. So Dana White and the Ultimate Fighting Championship will be having the whole ring, the octagon set up there on the South Lawn of the White House. That's June 14th. Also, President Trump's birthday is June 14th, of course. On July 4th, our great country celebrates its 250th anniversary. So 250 years young, that's of course July 4th. And then on November 3rd, the midterm elections will take place. And if you're just joining us, we interviewed the state senator from Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, who knows a lot about elections and securing our elections and what's needed, including voter ID and proof of citizenship, same-day voting, all on paper ballots, that kind of thing. Hopefully that's something that we get here in this country. At least can we start with the voter ID. A lot of countries across the earth have voter ID. We should have a voter ID when you walk in to vote for who we want to guide and direct our country. If we need an ID to purchase whatever, or if you need an ID, a license to drive a vehicle, or if you need an ID for whatever, you should have one to vote as well. So a voter ID. Then from there, proof of citizenship. That is, say someone that's an illegal immigrant has a voter ID that just was announced. Well, we have to be able to prove your citizenship as well. So two huge things that would be great to have. And then same-day voting. The votes, they happen that day. There's no waiting weeks for results. And then on top of that, having the paper ballots, hand-counted. So those are some of the things that we, the people, want to see across the United States of America, and we'll track it. We'll see. Will that happen? So what can we do about it? Maybe contact your congressman or congresswoman or your senator, contact whoever you need to say, we want voter ID. We want the United States voter ID. And you have a passport, maybe you have a license, plenty of government work out there, social security card, right? Well, birth certificate. Let's get voter ID. All right, again, 12 o'clock Eastern time, there will be a new live broadcast. Carolyn Levitt will hold a press conference at 1 o'clock. The Vice President of the United States will attend that as well. So a lot to be spoken about today. We're waiting right now a Department of Homeland Security press conference on this live stream. So that will be from World Trade Center, One World Trade in Lower Manhattan, coming up from the Department of Homeland Security. In the meantime, let's go to a couple of our sponsors as we await some of these live events. Let's go to Monetary Gold. Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm. Many now say gold could climb to $7,000 per troy ounce before the end of President Trump's term. And it's not wild speculation. Experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers are tracking those indicators. Soaring national debt, the unchecked government spending, and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. And what's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're actually trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. They're recognizing the pattern, and they know that paper currencies eventually fail, but gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history, and that's why we rely on Monetary Gold. With more than 25 years in business, an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a top 5 ranking from Consumer Affairs and Retirement Living. They've earned that reputation for trust and expertise. So all you have to do is give them a call, 888-617-7994, or visit rsbnforthegold.com before the next major move in the gold market. And of course, results can vary. Always consult with your financial and tax advisors before investing. Let's go to Chapter as well, a great sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And let's take a moment to talk about Medicare as we await that live press conference in Lower Manhattan. Most Medicare agents push Medicare Advantage plans even when they're not right for you because they make more money doing it. That's why we like Chapter. They don't just share the amazing benefits of Medicare Advantage. They explain the pros and cons for all of your Medicare options: Original Medicare, Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and Part D. So Chapter supports you in comparing every plan against your specific healthcare needs because they want you to be ensured that you have the best coverage for you. One Chapter member, Jill, said that her advisor presented options she didn't even see on Medicare.gov's website. And in many cases, Chapter saves people over $1,100 a year by getting them on the right plan. So if you're on Medicare or will be soon, call Chapter to learn about enrollment options and find ways to save on your healthcare costs. It's free and it's quick. It takes about 20 minutes. So most people actually wish they would have called sooner. For free and unbiased Medicare help, you can dial 833. You see that number on your screen, 438-3359, to speak with our trusted partner, Chapter, or you can go to askchapter.org/RSBN. AngelPaste.com out of Spring, Texas. Some great sponsors here that we're sharing with you. Of course, Angel Paste out of Spring, Texas, that has a number of products on there. Use the RSBN promo code. That goes a long way for a discount for not only the flagship product there that you see on your screen, the Miracle Cream, but also if you peruse the website, there's plenty on there for you to check out and purchase for skin health care, that kind of thing. For skin health. So just check it out there, angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. Great longtime sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, so it's 11:09. Let's kind of start from the top in the sense of what we're tracking today, just on this day, Thursday, January 8th. If you missed it, we interviewed the state senator from Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, moments ago. It was about a 30-minute interview, a great patriot there. So if you get a chance, maybe later today, if you didn't catch it, maybe replay it, scrub back, check it out. Great information there from Doug Mastriano, great patriot there in Pennsylvania. On tap at the White House today, as I mentioned earlier, the president already participated in a photo opportunity with United States attorneys at the East Room of the White House. At 11 o'clock, so just now, the president is now receiving his intelligence briefing in the Oval Office. And then at 5:30 tonight, again, this is all closed to the press currently, the president will participate in a policy meeting at the Oval Office. At 11 this morning as well, any minute from now, we're going to go from looking at Washington, D.C. to Lower Manhattan in New York, at One World Trade Center, where the Department of Homeland Security is holding an event, a press conference, any minute from now. As soon as we see that, we'll take you there. As of this hour, the details are unknown as to what the press conference will be about, but we'll take you there. It could be about what happened, of course, that incident in Minnesota just yesterday, but we'll see what happens and we'll watch it live with you. All right, so we went over a number of the dates earlier, what we're looking forward to in 2026. Of course, the biggest one, in my opinion, really the 250th of our country is huge. But to keep that country going in the sense of freedom, we got to win those midterm elections, and we have to have secure elections. And there's a lot of other things I think we need to have as well to just save our country moving forward through these years with President Trump and onward into the future. But in the meantime, let's go over a number of the core promises that we've seen from President Trump and the GOP. We'll do that in just a second, because what I have is a Throwback Thursday segment, which is a press conference from February of last year. And I was debating whether or not to air this right now, because we are awaiting that DHS press conference. So what we can do is this. We're going to watch this together, hopefully, if you'd like to stay tuned with us, because it's an important one. It's about government transparency, but it's a Throwback Thursday. It's from February of 2025 with Anna Paulina Luna and James Comer, of course, two great patriots. And what we'll do is this. If the DHS press conference starts, we will go right to that, even in the middle of this Throwback Thursday segment. So let's go to that, and then we'll go over the 20 core promises, just to review them once again as we are starting out this 2026, as we're 8 days into the new year, a lot already happening. Let's go to that Throwback Thursday. And again, we'll go right to DHS as soon as it starts.
Thank you all for being here. Today is a great day for transparency in America, because today I'm proud to announce the creation of the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. This task force will be a part of the House Oversight Committee and led by the very talented and persistent Congresswoman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna. During her time on the Oversight Committee, Representative Luna is a sledgehammer against government secrecy. She is committed to throwing open the windows for the American people to allow the sunlight of truth shine on the federal government. I can think of no better person in Congress to lead this task force than Representative Luna. Last month, President Trump signed an executive order to begin the process to declassify information on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. This task force serves to build on President Trump's actions. For far too long, the American people have had reasonable questions of what their government, which they fund every day, keeps hidden about certain issues. And for far too long, the federal government has not answered these questions. This creates distrust in our institutions. That ends today. The voters of this nation delivered a historic mandate to President Trump on November 5th. The keystone of that mandate was demanding increased transparency of their government and elected leaders, and the mandate of this task force is to acquire that transparency. We will open this up for questions from the media, but first I'd like to hand it over to my esteemed colleague and chairman of the new task force, Congresswoman Luna, for her remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Comer. When our founding fathers stood against tyranny, they did not merely oppose taxes. They defended the sacred idea of individual sovereignty. They declared that no government, agency, or title could infringe upon the freedoms of speech, religion, thought, and the pursuit of truth. For too long, the American spirit has been dimmed by a veil of secrecy, by a government that has grown too comfortable in the shadows, denying us the transparency we deserve. But today, we stand at the dawn of a new era where the light of truth begins to shine through. A few weeks ago, President Donald Trump made a historic announcement. With the stroke of a pen, he committed to declassifying the files concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A decision not just monumental, but pivotal. It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, Gill, and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be announced soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State. This will no longer be a task force that makes bold promises only to fade into irrelevance or send strongly worded letters. This will be a relentless pursuit of truth and transparency, and we will not stop until the American people have the answers they deserve. We will cut through the bureaucracy, challenge the stonewalling, and ensure that the American people finally get the truth that they have been denied for too long. If we are to endure and thrive as a nation, we must restore trust through transparency. The American people must be trusted to think for themselves, to form their own judgments from the truth that they are entitled to know. We've been treated like children for too long and kept in the dark by those we elected to serve us. It is my solemn duty to begin mending this trust, to form a new relationship between the government and the governed. Let us embark on this journey together towards a government that does not serve, but one that enlightens. That does not just serve, but one that enlightens. Trust through transparency, that begins now. Without further ado, we'd like to open it up for questions, as I'm sure many of you have those. Hands up.
Thank you, ma'am. Obviously, your goals are aligned with the administration's on the declassification of Martin Luther King and the Kennedys. How would you handle if you end up, whether it's President Trump or Attorney General Bondi or D&I Gabbard, if they disagree with what you're looking to declassify on a certain topic, whether it's UAPs or 9/11 or something like that? How would you handle if there's some stuff that they don't necessarily want to declassify?
Well, certainly, I think that they'd be supportive, being that they're advocating for this. But also, I want to remind the American people that this is bipartisan. There's also Democrats that are looking into answering these very questions. But certainly, we would share that information with the American people. This is about transparency. And I think, again, as I stated, for far too long, there's been a massive push to keep the American people in the dark, and that ends today.
Do you have subpoena power?
Chairman?
The task force does not have subpoena power. I do. The task force is going to be subsidiary of the full oversight committee. So if we have to issue one, Congresswoman Luna, we'll discuss it and we'll take appropriate action.
But in full transparency, we have a great working relationship, as I stated earlier, with the White House, with the DOJ, with the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State. The incoming FBI director, I think, will be very supportive, and we've also been told that the CIA director is very supportive. To put it in perspective, I think that this issue transcends not just one administration, but multiple administrations, and it hasn't been until now that we've been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make that known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic.
What's your priority list? Because Epstein, 9/11?
Our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were two shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the SCIF, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public.
Thank you for doing this. Have you identified the Democrats who will sit on the task force, and could you talk a little bit more about the role of Democrats in this?
Yeah, so again, this is a bipartisan commission. Remember, JFK was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I'm sure that I think the entire conference has a question on what actually happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, but also UAPs. You guys know that that was the biggest bipartisan, bicameral hearing that we've ever had, I think, in congressional history. I do not know who their members are yet. They've noticed it, but they're taking this very seriously. This is not a conspiracy theory investigating committee. We're actually looking to present truth to the American people. And it's in my opinion that no one person elected to office is more important or more qualified to look at the information that they've been hiding from us. And so we look to push for that transparency.
What sort of witnesses will you expect to have at your hearings? I know you said the first one's in March. Would that be department heads, former employees of various agencies?
Would you like to jump in? Yeah, I was going to say, based on what we're actually looking to do with the JFK investigation, I'm looking to actually bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination, and then also people that had been on the various commissions looking into, like the Warren Commission looking into the initial assassinations. There's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at the time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland. All of those, though, seem to have been rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. And so I think that in order to put to bed some of the theories that have been out there on John F. Kennedy, we have to know the full truth. And the full truth starts with transparency. And that's why these files is so important for the American people to read for themselves.
With this task force, what are you hoping to uncover as far as UAPs that you have not already heard from other UAP hearings?
The biggest information problems that we've had with UAPs is the amount of stonewalling, stovepiping, and also it seems that there is this push to gaslight the American people into looking at the evidence and then not fully believing it. I think for us, if we're writing the budget, for example, into the Pentagon, if we're writing the budget overall for whatever programs might be out there, why is it that members of Congress who are given a top secret security clearance are being denied access? That's not a free and true government. And so for us, especially being that we have now a Secretary of State who's actually open to declassification and Marco Rubio, we're hoping to present that information and at least acknowledge it from a government perspective that we are not alone, but also let's see what the evidence is.
Thank you. Have you already been in contact with or started to send requests to these different agencies and federal departments for this information?
Yes, in fact, the letters went out this morning, not just on RFK, JFK, and MLK, but on everything that I had listed above to include UAPs, Epstein, and 9/11 and COVID, to the State Department, Department of Defense, CIA, and then also we'll be sending some to the FBI, and letters have also gone out to the NSA.
How is this going to be different than the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which did investigate both the John F. Kennedy assassination and the King assassination?
Well, what's interesting on that specific committee is what, to my understanding, when they actually brought in expert witnesses, they weren't actually people that were in attendance to the initial autopsy at Bethesda. But also, this is a bigger committee than just the JFK assassinations. We're also expanding into Epstein, COVID origins, 9/11s, and then UAPs and USOs. And so before, where we initially had some of these hearings, this is going to be an encompassing committee that's going to work directly with the White House on information that they're declassifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. There's actually 3 different government investigations into the JFK assassination. But again, this committee is expanding not just there, but outwards into other fields. And again, we're working directly with the White House. In previous investigations, they didn't have access to the information that we are going to have access to. And so that's a big deal, especially if you're looking at what truly happened with JFK.
All right, so just a little bit of a throwback Thursday there for you from February of 2025 about transparency in government. Thought it would be apt to play that. Why not? All right, so it's 11:24. Let's go now live to the Department of Health and Human Services. They're having an event there in a minute or so. Director, has it started, or are they just kind of getting ready to go? Okay, let's go to that right now.
Good morning. Who is hungry for a new food pyramid? Well, how about it? It's time to talk about school lunch programs, not just putting 6-year-olds on Ozempic. We announced this yesterday at the White House briefing room, and already in 24 hours have had a tremendous response, a national conversation about what kids eat. at school boards, in houses of worship, military bases, and in the SNAP program. And we want this conversation to keep going. Today is day 2. We want it to keep going. I want to thank all of you who are here, a lot of familiar faces, who are here because you believed in Secretary Kennedy's vision to put food back in the center of our healthcare system. This is health reform. This is a component of health reform, and a powerful one. It's been ignored for a long time. If you haven't noticed, American nutrition has had a rough last 50 years, driven by bad advice and misinformation from medical dogma, from the establishment, and from the United States government. Today and yesterday, we are setting the record straight, telling people the truth about food. The last 50 years has been dominated by medical dogma, really around one concept, a myopic focus that there was one boogeyman in the food supply: natural, saturated, healthy fats. And if you avoided them, that was the secret to better health. Well, as we kept saying this, the entire food supply moved to refined carbohydrates and ultra-processed foods. And what did the medical establishment do? Double down. Avoid more fat. Consume less fat. And it was the same message as we watched a ballooning epidemic that now affects 40% of American kids: obesity, diabetes, other health problems. You know, the propagators of this dogma tried to prove their theory correct. In the 1960s, the colleagues of Ansel Keys tried to do the end-all study that was going to once and for all prove that it was saturated fat that was causing our problems in health. A randomized controlled trial of over 9,000 people, randomizing them to a low-fat diet. And in the end, the low-fat group had higher rates of coronary heart disease and heart attacks. Wait a minute. It's the opposite of what they were finding. They suppressed the data for 16 years. 2 other large studies failed to show an association. Finally, the study trickled out in the medical literature. Nobody noticed it. Those on the low-fat group had higher rates of heart attacks. Why? Maybe because when you avoid fat, you have to pound food with carbohydrates, and often ultra-processed carbohydrates stripped of fiber and chopped up. It functions like sugar. We created a generation of children with low protein, high carbohydrates, sugar addiction, and burdened with ultra-processed foods. And what did we do as a medical field? Drugged them at scale. Those days are over. We are telling people the truth about food. It's not right. And when the senior author was asked, why did you wait 16 years to publish the largest end-all randomized trial on saturated fat, he said, quote unquote, "We were just so disappointed in the way it turned out." That's not the way science is supposed to work. We're supposed to seek the truth and ask questions, not accept dogma. But nowhere in my medical education was I actually taught the truth. Same for Jay Bhattacharya, Mehmet Oz, and the other physicians, Brian Christine. I was never taught the truth that you can make some forms of skin eczema disappear by changing what you eat, that you can cure most type 2 diabetes by changing what you eat, that you can improve your gut health and mental clarity and memory by changing what you eat. Those were principles that we know to be true, that clinicians have observed, that we just don't hear about. Today, we are setting the record straight. The old system that a pill for everything is going to solve our health problems is no longer the framework. We are getting back to the root causes of our healthcare chronic disease epidemic: insulin resistance, general body inflammation. We are addressing the low protein recommendations, increasing those by 50 to 100%. We shouldn't be having protein recommendations in the dietary guidance, as we found when we came to office, that prevent muscle wasting and withering away. We're not trying to prevent kids from withering away. We want American kids to thrive, and we're going to give them the protein recommendations. We really wouldn't be here talking about this with such national support. Even the critics are saying this is one thing they got right. Getting away from the corporate interests. You know, we have a charge from President Trump. Do what's medically right and don't worry about the lobbyists. And that's what we did. That's what we did. People of all different political persuasions all say, you know, when it comes to Bobby Kennedy, I love what he's doing on food. And Bobby, we love what you have done to lead us on food. Thank you for being the leader. At a time when social media and affirming news tries to divide us, there is a topic that unites every mom and dad out there in the United States, everyone trying to take care of their parent, everybody who looks at this topic with any degree of objectivity, and that is we need to right the ship when it comes to our dietary guidance and literally turn the food pyramid upside down. Brooke Rollins, you have been the perfect partner in this. And I believe you will go down in history as one of the great leaders in reforming our food supply in the United States of America. USDA is a huge part of this. So I want to thank everybody who's here. You're going to hear from a bunch of folks, but most of all, I want to thank everybody here who has believed in this message and has broadcast it before we even took this on and came to office, and that's why we're here today. So with that, I'll introduce our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Thank you, Bobby.
Welcome, everybody, and I want to start by thanking my friend and colleague, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, who you're about to hear from. Brooke understands that good food policy is good health policy and good farm policy. Our partnership represents an historic collaboration between HHS and USDA, one that finally aligns the prosperity of our agricultural system with the health of the American people. And when we were sitting backstage here, Brooke was talking about all of the great publicity that we've gotten on this announcement yesterday, which has been extraordinary. And she said, it's the first time I've had good publicity. I don't really know how to handle it psychologically. but it has been wonderful. The one voice against us has been the American Heart Association. And interestingly, Marty McCary wrote a book about the war on saturated fats. And I urge people to go and read that chapter to his book, which is called Blind Spots. It's an extraordinary saga, and it is kind of a template for how scientific consensus often orients around one bad study that then becomes the dogma. And that it's something that's really bad for you, and yet the scientific establishment, there's a big difference between established science and the scientific establishment. And the scientific, we all know that experts, trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It is a feature of tyranny and a feature of religion, but not science. In science, you question everything. And, you know, we were told for 3 years during COVID, trust the experts, but that is not science. Science is eternal skepticism towards all orthodoxies, understanding that people in authority lie and that there's all kinds of conflicts of interest that drive the creation of orthodoxies and dogmas around bad ideas, and that in a democracy we have a responsibility to become the CEOs of our own health, to take charge of it. It's a big responsibility. It's a responsibility people maybe in other countries don't have. But it's something that is a burden that's put on each of us. And we all need to question what we're told. And this war on saturated fats is a really good example. And again, I urge people to read Marty's book, but one of the big villains in that chapter is the American Heart Association, which it was and continues to accept millions of dollars on the biggest processed food makers in this country. And then given us and supported and fortified a dogma that vilified and demonized good food and implicitly then bolstered the economics and mercantile ambitions of the processed food makers that were providing its funding. And these are the conflicts of interest that all of us, Marty and Jay and Oz and everybody in this agency, came in to end those conflicts and to expose them. And it's important that the American people know that sometimes they're getting medical advice from people who have an economic stake in that advice. And we have a responsibility to question that. I'm also grateful for all the people attending today, including SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler, National Advisor for Nutrition, Health, and Housing, Dr. Ben Carson, USDA Secretary of Agriculture, Stephen Faden, member of the Maha Caucus, Senator Ron Johnson, a huge advocate for us, and Chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture, Glenn Thompson, Senate Maha Caucus Chair, Senator Roger Marshall, another great friend and advocate, House Maha Caucus Chairs, Republican Lloyd Smucker, and Verd Buchanan, Chairman of the Republican Policy Committee, Representative Kevin Hearn, Chairman of the Republican Study Committee, Representative August Pfluger, Chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture, Andy Harris, and Representative Nick Langworth, and the many executives of the food companies and major associations who are here with us today. Today marks a revolutionary change in federal nutrition policy made possible by President Trump's leadership and the work of the Maha moms and public health advocates who demanded reform. Today, we are here to celebrate the release of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2025 to 2030, the most significant reset of federal nutrition policy in history. The stakes are measurable and severe. The United States is the highest obesity and type 2 diabetes rate in the developed world. We spend 3 times more per capita than the European Union on health care, yet our life expectancy is 5 years shorter, largely due to diet-related chronic disease. Our childhood obesity rates are 5 times higher than obesity rates among children in France. 1/3 of U.S. teens have prediabetes. Over 30, when I was a kid, juvenile diabetes was practically unknown. A typical pediatrician would see 1 case over a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 children who walk through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. 35% are overweight of our teens or obese. 20% of young adults have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. 20%. 77% of military-age children cannot qualify for military service because of diet-related chronic disease. If a foreign adversary sought to destroy the health of our children, cripple our economy, weaken our national security, there would be no better strategy than addicting our nation to ultra-processed foods. It's shocking that our own government helped to drive the cataclysmic changes in our diet. Johns Hopkins analysis estimates that 48% of federal tax dollars now go to health care. The CDC reports that 90% of health care goes to chronic disease that is related to diet. That means that more than 40 cents of every dollar collected in taxes is going to treat diet-related chronic disease. If the United States reduced obesity and type 2 diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's to the level that the Japanese have achieved, we would save $600 billion a year, about 50% of Medicare's projected long-term deficit, or $5,000 per family per year. Current policy worsens the problems. 42 million Americans rely on the SNAP, where common purchases include sugary drinks, candy, and chips. 78% of SNAP recipients are enrolled in Medicaid, and 90% of Medicaid cost goes to chronic disease. These incentives, so we're giving the kids chronic disease in the first place and diabetes, and then we're paying for it at the back end in Medicaid. And we're hurting the poorest people in our country, the people who can least afford medical care. The damage is real and it's preventable. President Trump has ordered it to end. The dietary guidelines rest on 3 pillars: protein, healthy fats, vegetables and fruits, and whole grains. These guidelines replace the corporate-driven assumptions with common sense, gold standard scientific integrity. These new guidelines will revolutionize our nation's food culture and make America healthy again. For decades, Americans have grown sicker while healthcare costs have soared. The reason is clear. Our government has been lying to us to protect corporate profit-taking, telling us that these food-like substances were beneficial to our health. Federal policy promoted and subsidized highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates and turned a blind eye to the cataclysmic consequences. Today, the lies stop. The new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and to lowering healthcare costs. Protein and healthy fats are essential today, and today we end the 65-year-old war on saturated fats. Diets rich in vegetables and fruit reduce the risk of disease much more effectively than medical interventions or pharmaceutical interventions. Whole grains outperform refined carbohydrates. Added sugar, especially sugar-sweetened beverages, drive metabolic disease epidemic in our country. And today, our government declares war on added sugar. Highly processed foods. Highly processed foods loaded with additives, added sugar, and excess salt damage health, and they should be avoided. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, my message is clear: eat real food. If it doesn't come from the ground or the water or the air, don't eat it. If it comes wrapped in a package that is clear that the whole thing is a package, don't eat it. Nothing matters more for health outcomes, economic productivity, military readiness, and fiscal stability. The first time the guidelines directly address ultra-processed food and set firm sugar limits in federal procurements, driving significant reduction in added sugar in school meals. I thank President Trump for his leadership and the partners committed to ensuring federal food dollars that support real food and better health. I also want to thank all the extraordinary scientists who I got to meet as a whole group for the first time this morning from the top universities around this country who worked day and night to make this report happen. They really made miracles happen in a record amount of time. The dietary guidelines shape dozens of federal feeding programs, including Head Start. These standards affect 45 million school lunches every day, meals for 1.3 million active duty service members, food served to 9 million veterans in VA hospitals. Today, and Head Start and a lot of other federally subsidized food programs. Today begins the work of aligning these programs with affordable, whole, nutrient-dense food. I'm working with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Marty McCary, to fund and prioritize rigorous nutrition research at the NIH in collaboration with the FDA. I'm also working with my fellow cabinet secretaries across the government to deliver results. This administration is extending an open hand to any stakeholder who wants to work together and fix this problem. I want to thank the many health organizations, not the American Heart Association, but the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, which does not agree with me on a lot of issues. We're suing each other on other stuff. But on this issue, they agree. There's a consensus. And I want to thank them all for partnering with us on this effort. I also want to thank the entire USDA team led by Kaylee Bueller, Jennifer Tiller, and the HHS team led by Assistant Secretary of Health, Dr. Brian Christine, Kyle Diamanis, Joe Proenza, Rachel Amaro, Dorothy Fink, and Michael Bose, who are all indispensable to these guidelines. And I also want to thank my deputy, Stephanie Spear, who worked day and night to make sure that this product got out. And Heidi Overton and Callie Means and a bunch of other people who gave their lives to this effort over the past 6 or 8 months. So I want to thank you, and I'm going to bring up my partner, my friend, my collaborator, Brooke Rollins, the greatest USDA secretary in history.
Okay, wow, they have cool music over here at HHS. I like it. Listen, there he is. I think we all need to rise to our feet and give this man, my dear friend, Bobby Kennedy, I'm not sure, there he is behind me, the most rousing round of applause and love and respect and appreciation and support and just thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just don't think it can be overstated what a difference maker this man behind me is. And I think we're in an administration of difference makers, but I think he is a giant, and we're all standing on his shoulders. And the sacrifice that he has, in so many ways, that he has endured to get to this point, to literally change the course of history for this country, is true and it's real, and we owe him such a huge debt of gratitude. So thank you, Bobby Kennedy. Thank you. God bless you. Just so grateful. A couple of quick things I want to say, and then I know we have quite an amazing set of speakers, so I don't want to take too long. I just want to say how grateful I am, what an incredible team this has been. Even on Christmas Day, there was some back and forth. On New Year's Day, this team has worked 7 days a week, all month since the beginning of last year on these dietary guidelines, down to what color the back of the upside down triangle should look like up till the very last minute, how big the ribeye should be on the triangle, what is actually in the bowl. It's rice and beans, everyone. All up until the last minute, this has been the work of so many hands. The vision and the leadership of Secretary Kennedy and his incredible team, I'm just so grateful for. Talked about the amazing USDAers, my crew over at USDA. Kaylee is up here, our incredible chief of staff with her 3 little kids, including my best friend Conrad right there. It makes me so proud. And, when I was joking with Bobby, I said, wow, there weren't many naysayers yesterday, which is unusual in both of our worlds. And it just goes to, I think, how extremely important this is and just what a joy it is. Many reasons it's so joyful to me. I'm a Maha mom of 4 teenagers, a little bit different than the life phase of where the team behind me is, but nevertheless, have been really working on this and battling this in my own family for a really, really long time. So to be able to be even a small part of this fundamental change just means so much to me personally as a mom. But secondly, to be able to put the farmers and the ranchers of this country back in the middle of what we will do to save America and save Americans' health is just beyond description. I have a couple of them here today. I just want them to stand. I normally wouldn't do this, but Dave Fisher, a beef farmer from Indiana, is here. Dave, I don't know where you are. He has an amazing he works with 35 farms. They sell to their local school. The school kids get, locally produced food. I mean, this is the way, everyone. Ben Rexing, a dairy farmer from Indiana. How about whole milk back in schools? G.T. Thompson, I don't know. And Roger Marshall, yes. Whole milk back in schools. So a big shout out to our dairy farmers. I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about that from the White House soon. And finally, Edward Barrett, a hog and beef farmer from my amazing state of Texas. It is just beyond, again, my ability to describe in words what today means, what yesterday meant, the opportunity and the blessing of a lifetime to be a part of this effort to fight for our great American farmers and ranchers. And again, like I say, to put them back in the middle of the policy making, to get real food out to America. And listen, I talk about me and my 4 teenagers and the struggles to ensure that happens, and the beautiful families behind me, including my sister Riley Gaines. I see you back there, Riley. Amazing Riley Gaines and her beautiful new baby girl. But that's a struggle, and there's no doubt. But listen, when you think about the vulnerable communities around this country, those who are living on the margins of their community, those who are just hoping that they can have heat for the winter and air for the summer, and that they can potentially get a healthy meal or two on the table, it is now within reach. Having this sort of dietary nutrition will change, again, the course of American health and the course of American history. But the next step is making sure that these foods are accessible to all Americans, not just Americans with a certain bank account. And I think in closing, I'll say this. It's really important as we prioritize this to note that these foods are affordable, that you can have a meal with pork or chicken or fish, and ground beef is coming down. Ground beef, everybody. With a vegetable, with a whole grain piece of bread, with a corn tortilla. You can have all of that on average for $3 a meal, which is much less than what a fast food meal could be or a certain amount of packaged foods. But what we have to fix is how we make these foods accessible. And one big announcement coming from USDA: for every retailer in America that takes a SNAP dollar, our food stamp money, which is 250,000 of them, everyone. So while we do have food deserts, there is opportunity amongst these 250,000 retailers across America. Starting almost immediately, we are doubling what's called the stocking standard, making sure that if they're going to take a tax dollar on behalf of those with the least among us, that they will have twice as many healthy alternatives to choose from wherever those SNAP dollars are accepted off of this dietary guideline. So again, I want to thank my incredible partner, Secretary Bobby Kennedy. I want to thank the incredible HHS team, Callie and Stephanie and the whole team, Dr. Marty McCary, Dr. Bhattacharya, all of the incredible teams that have worked so hard to get to this day. And know that while we are moving forward, this is really just the beginning for a new day in America. The best is yet to come. God bless you. Thank you all. What a joy to be here. Thank you. I was so excited I forgot to introduce the next speaker. So here she is, y'all. There's just no one better in the cabinet Administrator Kelly Loeffler, who herself is a farm girl, the 28th administrator of the SBA, grew up on a farm in Illinois. Kelly Loeffler, everybody.
Secretary Rollins, for your kind introduction. You're such a dear friend. And of course, to Secretary Kennedy for the tremendous work you're doing on behalf of the Trump administration and MAHA. Long live MAHA. Thank you so much, Bobby. It's an honor to serve together, to serve the American people every single day in this administration. We're fighting every day to make America great and healthy again. We took office with very clear eyes and a sense of urgency. Healthcare was more expensive than ever. Americans were sicker than ever. For decades, politicians responded by doing the same thing over and over, but demanding more money to do it. Spending more, subsidizing more, funding the same entrenched interests while outcomes got worse. That is why it's a new day. Under President Trump and under Secretary Kennedy's leadership, we are pursuing an all-of-the-above, America First, all-hands-on-deck approach to make our nation stronger and healthier. On day one, President Trump delivered on his promise to lower drug prices. He struck dozens of deals with pharmaceutical manufacturers that have already brought drug prices down in this country, and they're going to continue to fall. And then, through the Working Families Tax Cut, he expanded health savings accounts, which puts families, not bureaucrats, in control of your health care. He's ending a broken welfare system that hands healthcare dollars to illegal aliens and fraudsters that protect programs, instead to protect programs for those who need it and deserve it. President Trump has made historic commitments to innovation, including AI, which is going to improve diagnostics, reduce waste in the healthcare system, and deliver better health outcomes for all Americans. And with the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, our public health priorities are now focused on prevention and science, no longer politics, and delivering healthier, longer lives. So whether through revised vaccine schedules, better autism research, or much needed new dietary guidelines, this administration is focusing on standing with Americans, not big pharma or with big food. The new food pyramid is common sense. It's science-based. It prioritizes whole, minimally processed foods, that's pretty common sense, and confronts the role that highly processed foods have in making our families, our children, and everyone sicker, not healthier. So at the SBA, we're excited to support the small businesses that help deliver on MAHA, to help consumers make healthier choices and more affordable. Small generational family farms like the one I grew up on make up roughly 97% of all farms in America. So I want to thank our farmers and ranchers because you are the best of America. These producers, along with America's small food producers, distributors, grocers, restaurants, are essential to delivering healthy choices for Americans. So when we align healthcare policy, when we align dietary guidance and economic policy, we're redefining wellness for the future of this country, and the SBA is ensuring that small businesses at every turn have a chance to support a healthier nation. So we're expanding access to capital, strengthening local food supply chains, removing regulations. That's a big part of the SBA's remit, is to support deregulation that prevents healthy food from getting into the hands of our families, and removing regulations that have favored big food for far too long. Because making America healthy again is not a single policy. It's a movement committed to accountability, transparency, data, facts, and freedom. And we're also confronting a system that profits from making America sick. At SBA, we're proud to empower the entrepreneurs, farmers, and small businesses who will make America healthy again. We're proud to invest in those who grow affordable, nutritious food for this country, and we're so proud to join Secretaries Kennedy and Rollins and President Trump in making our country healthy again. It is now my distinct honor to introduce my friend, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. He is the director of the National Institute for Health. Thank you, and God bless you.
I don't think I've ever had walkout music before. It's amazing. This is a huge day, and let me just start with a very quick story about a research paper I wrote 15 years ago with the most obvious result ever, which is that if you take sugar-sweetened beverages out of SNAP, kids get healthier. I wrote, thank you. Okay, I wrote the paper 15 years ago, and I forgot about it because no one did anything about it. This administration, for the first time, under the leadership of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, is doing something about it, and not just on sugar-sweetened beverages, but on the whole food pyramid, fundamentally changing the direction of this country with the new dietary guidelines. It is one of the most significant resets of new federal nutrition policy I've ever seen, and I'll tell you, those 15 years were frustrating because the data were there and no one was acting. The difference in this administration is that we are now acting on the information that's there and changing it because we care deeply about the health of Americans. This moment reflects a restoration of common sense, scientific integrity, and accountability, much of it supported by research at the National Institute of Health. And they represent a clear break from decades of guidance that failed to improve the health of Americans. For too long, Americans were told to avoid protein, avoid healthy fats, rely on carbohydrates, and accept highly processed foods as unavoidable. I spent my youth scared of eggs. And then my family introduced egg whites because I guess those were better. Now, eggs are a superfood. You can see where, they're not on the pyramid somewhere, they gotta be. Nearly 90% of healthcare spending goes toward treating chronic disease. More than 70% of adults are obese or overweight, and nearly 1 in 3 of adolescents are on a path toward diabetes. We can't go on like this, and with this new food pyramid, we are making a real dent. These outcomes are not inevitable. They are the predictable result of poor policy choices and nutrition guidance disconnected from real-world health. NIH research has consistently shown that nutrition is a central driver of chronic disease risk. Dietary patterns influence inflammation, insulin resistance, blood pressure, and are at the root of so many problems and diseases, including cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, liver and kidney disease, cancer, cognitive health. If you want to make America healthy again, you have to address the food that we eat in this country. And for the first time in decades, you're seeing real change. I'm very pleased to announce also a cooperation that we're into an agreement that we're doing with the Food and Drug Administration for NIH research to work, because it's not enough just to say the science has spoken. There is no such thing as the science speaking. We have to keep doing excellent gold standard science. And so as this change is happening, we're going to make sure that it actually is working to make America healthy through excellent gold standard research. In this administration, what we want to do is use science for the good of the people and keep doing it and challenge dogmas in ways that fundamentally transform health, and that's exactly what we're doing with these new dietary guidelines. The dietary guidelines reflect science directly and clearly. They prioritize real nutrient-dense food, including high-quality protein at every meal, full-fat dairy without added sugars, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, fiber-rich whole grains, and yes, even eggs. They take a firm stance against highly processed foods, added sugars, refined carbohydrates, and sugar-sweetened beverages. For the first time, the guidelines state plainly that no amount of added sugar or non-nutritive sweeteners is recommended as a part of a healthy diet, and that young children should avoid sugars altogether. Thank you. Under President Trump's leadership and Secretary Kennedy's direction, these guidelines recognize that healthy fats are not the enemy. Adequate protein is essential for growth and metabolic health, and that certain individuals with chronic disease may experience improved outcomes with lower carb diets. This is not ideology. It's evidence-based, common sense science. Finally, the guidelines matter because they inform nutrition standards across a whole wide range of federal policies, including school meals, military food systems, SNAP, WIC. The NIH's role has been to generate the rigorous scientific evidence that helps policymakers understand how diet influences health, and we'll continue to do that with continued gold standard research. The science is strong, and it continues to demonstrate that improving diet quality is essential to improving the health of Americans, and thank you for your time. I want to, before I go, introduce Secretary, I want to introduce Dr. Ben Carson, who is the National Nutrition Advisor who came out of retirement so that he could help the health of this country. Dr. Carson, please welcome.
This is so wonderful because this is the first time in my knowledge that we've had separate departments, agriculture, HHS, willing to work together. We've had Marty McCary also, Mehmet Oz, a whole bunch of people who are willing to just settle and work together, not looking for preeminence, but looking for a solution to the problems that we have today. And I just am finding it very wonderful to be able to work with people who are that dedicated, because it's going to make a difference. You know, it was 45 years ago that the first dietary guidelines for Americans was put forth. 45 years to get our health into the right place based on the foods that we eat. Unfortunately, we lost our way. And in those years, now we see spiking of chronic diseases in adults, obesity in children, and a whole host of chronic conditions that are secondary to the fact that we've forgotten about real food. We've forgotten about how valuable it is and even what it is. The dietary guidelines were there to point people in the direction of the right kinds of foods. And instead, for the sake of convenience and pricing, we've allowed the nutrition to be taken out of our food and replaced it with empty calories. And now we see all these fat kids running around. It's not their fault, it's our fault, because we're in charge and we need to be putting the right things in front of them. I love it when people say, I don't really eat that much. I just have a gland problem. Have you heard that? They do have a gland problem. It's a salivary gland. And we need to deal with that as well as the empty calories. But, you know, as a pediatric neurosurgeon, I was very concerned about the nutrition of the patients, because the brain begins to develop from the moment of conception. And millions of neurons are added every day. Later on, billions of neurons a day. Think about that. And the brain continues to develop right into the mid to late 20s. So what are we giving it to develop on? Empty calories or highly nutritious real food? I think we're seeing the result of that. Sometimes I wonder about some of these kids we see. They're on these man on the street interviews and they ask them the simplest questions. And they have no idea what you're talking about. You could say, who wrote Mozart's 40th Symphony? And they wouldn't know. I mean, I think that has something to do with brain development. So we need to be thinking about how are we going to change that. And that's what's happening right now with this group of people, not only the principals, but really outstanding staff who've dedicated themselves to getting this done. I've never seen such dedication before, and I'm sure it will pay for us. You know, but when I think about the body that God gave us, it was meant for high performance, not low performance. And if we put the right things in it, it will perform well. It's sort of like a high-powered race car. What are you going to fuel it with? Probably premium gasoline. You're not going to come along and say, well, maybe if I mix it half and half with water, it'll do well. It'll still go, but it won't perform highly. And then you say, I don't like the way it smells, so let's put some maple syrup in it. What's going to happen over the course of time? It's going to stop working. You're going to have to replace the whole engine. The cost of not providing the appropriate nutritious meals for our people does the same thing. It costs us a lot at the end because of the diabetes and all the other things that are going on. I have a very good friend, had a very difficult case of diabetes, very difficult to manage. He went to Italy, and within 2 weeks, it was gone. He was staying at a villa. All the fresh foods were grown right there, the dairy products, no processing. Within 2 weeks, the diabetes was gone. He stayed for 3 months. He came back here. Within 2 weeks, it was back. And I don't think that's an exceptional case. So it tells us what we need to do. I am praising God that we have the clarity and the leadership to get it done. And with that, I want to thank all the supporters. You've noticed there hasn't been a lot of people on the other side or on any side. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a matter of health for America. And I want to introduce Jim O'Neill, who is the Deputy Secretary for HHS. As a former Cabinet Secretary, I can't even begin to tell you how important the Deputy Secretary is. And he's also the Acting Director of CDC, Jim O'Neill.
Thank you, Dr. Carson. Chronic disease causes suffering. Chronic disease causes disability. Chronic disease causes death. And treated chronic disease costs America more than $4 trillion a year. Eating healthy is much more affordable. Steak is very healthy, but so is ground beef. Unfortunately, for decades, our country suffered from regulatory capture and junk science promoting junk food. You know, CDC, which I run, promulgates ICD-10 codes, diagnostic codes, a long list of possible diagnoses that a doctor can check off depending on the symptoms of the patient. Looking at these statistics last fall, I thought we'd have to add a new ICD-10 code for ultra-processed patient. But I called that off. We don't need it anymore. The reason we don't need it is that yesterday, Brooke and Bobby launched a revolution in our culture. Thanks to them, starting next fall, when parents drop their kids off at school, they will know that the right side up pyramid will be hanging in the classroom. And that was just the beginning. Last summer, we started meeting with medical schools and residency programs and accreditors, and we've had very good conversations with them. And because of that, next fall, medical students and residents will finally be taught the core basis of health, which is nutrition. We also need better science around saturated fat. We've ended the war on it, but there's still more to learn. That's why I'm so delighted that, as Jay just announced, he's launching an aggressive new research agenda with randomized controlled trials to unlock the final secrets of metabolism. To close, I have an announcement. Yesterday at lunch, I heard Secretary Rollins and Secretary Kennedy kind of compete to see who had the best food stories. It was very close. And this morning, getting ready to welcome our peers from the Department of Agriculture over to the Hubert Humphrey building, it occurred to me I should really challenge them to a friendly competition. Now, the obvious sport in which we should compete with USDA, of course, is pull-ups. But we already have that going in the Department of War. So then I thought, how about bull riding? But the Aggies grew up riding bulls. So that's not quite fair either. But now, looking around this beautiful hall, I have the solution. I would hereby like to challenge the Department of Agriculture to a very vigorous game of dodgeball. Please welcome my valiant friend, the Assistant Secretary for Health, Admiral Brian Christine.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to everyone who joins us here today or online to celebrate these new and improved dietary guidelines, because this is a celebration. And let me be direct. Let me be very clear about what has been accomplished. We have flipped the script on establishment nutrition, and we have turned the pyramid upside down. And let me be equally clear, these dietary guidelines will help make America healthy again. Every 5 years, the federal government releases dietary guidelines that shape what millions of Americans consume, from children in schools to our war fighters. And believe me, these dietary guidelines do matter. Unfortunately, the old guidelines were corrupted by special interest groups and junk science into something that was neither healthy nor thoughtful. Sugary cereal for breakfast in the morning, ultra-processed fast foods for lunch, maybe a pizza for dinner, and then in the middle of the day, throw in a bag of salty chips. When you look at the previous food pyramid, that's what we were told to eat. The system was not just flawed, it was nonsensical. As a physician and a surgeon with over 30 years of practice experience, I can tell you with absolute certainty that prior guidelines sacrificed best medical practice and abandoned the care of Americans. For years, my colleagues and I treated patients with chronic disease, with obesity, with cardiovascular disease, and all of these were made worse due to the previous dietary guidance. Every time that I took an obese patient to the operating room, I knew that there would be a greater risk of death and a greater risk of complications because of that obesity. And I knew that that obesity, at least in part, was based on highly processed, sugary, fake food. We healthcare professionals have been waiting for dietary recommendations that truly promote health and longevity. We've been waiting for better dietary guidelines. We've been waiting for the kind of leadership that we get from Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Rollins, and today we can all celebrate that that wait is over. Following the bold leadership of President Trump, of Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Rollins, we are flipping the pyramid upside down. We have abandoned the old approach and put the health of Americans first by reclaiming what the guidelines were meant to be and by eliminating the special interest that controlled them. We have replaced vague language with radical clarity. We have replaced lies with truth. Our guidelines are driven not by an economic or political agenda. Our guidelines are driven by gold standard, outstanding science, because that's what Secretary Kennedy demands. At the very core of these new guidelines is an emphasis on whole and minimally processed foods. We recommend prioritizing high-quality, nutrient-dense protein from both animal and plant sources. And these are the type of foods that we've always been meant to eat. These are the types of food that will make men, women, and their children stronger and resistant to chronic disease. These are the foods that will make America healthy and great. Everything that we do at the Department of Health and Human Services is a team effort. And I want to echo what Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Rollins said. We've all worked together. The collaboration that we see here at the Department of Health and Human Services is like nothing that's ever been seen in federal government before. Look at these guidelines. We've all come together. I want to thank members of my team at the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health and all of the individuals who have worked to make these guidelines happen. I look out in the audience and I see you. I know the hours that you've put in. Late nights, early mornings, times away from your family. And I want to say that I am incredibly proud of you. Well done. As we work relentlessly to make America healthy again, I urge everyone here, read these guidelines, share them with your family, share them with your friends, and reclaim control over you and your children's health. Together, we can reverse decades of health decline, and we can build a healthier future for generations to come. God bless all of you who are here. God bless all on this stage. God bless the amazing farmers that grow great food here in America. God bless our Maha moms and dads who have demanded a better future. God bless the healthcare practitioners, doctors, nurses, dietitians who are going to carry forth and proclaim the gospel of these new dietary guidelines. And God bless RFK Jr. Thank you. It's with great pleasure that I welcome the Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods, Mr. Kyle Diamantis.
All right, thank you, Dr. Christine. Look, I'm the last speaker. I know it's been a long hour, so I'll also be short. But I want to say thanks to all of our tremendous speakers here today. Let's give them a round of applause. Today would not be possible without them. Thank you. Also want to thank our members of Congress, Senator Marshall, Representative Smucker here today, who have been just tremendous allies for us. Look, as all of you heard today, for the first time in modern history, the United States government is united in its efforts to tackling nutrition with a whole of government approach. Whether that be through the MAHA movement spearheaded by Secretary Kennedy, the tremendous work of Secretary Rollins leading the USDA, our work with Administrator Loeffler, investments in nutrition research at NIH, to improving our meals at schools, veterans facilities, and military bases around the world. We have full alignment across this entire administration to address the drivers and root causes of diet-related chronic disease and reverse the decades-long trend of diminished healthcare outcomes in this country. So as we close today's event, I want to make clear that today is not the end of the mission. It's a historic moment. It's a historic release of these dietary guidelines that should be celebrated, but today is just the beginning. It's the beginning of a new approach to nutrition, to empowering parents, to investing in gold standard science and research, to recapturing our own health by making better informed choices for ourselves and our youth, and to unite and work across the political aisle to tackle these issues, because improving our collective nutritional outcomes and investing in research in our children's health simply cannot wait any longer. So today begins a year-long push throughout the entirety of 2026 to celebrate nutrition, to tackle reforms, and to unite together to address the drivers of diet-related chronic disease. Today's event is the kickoff of a series of events that all of today's speakers will participate in throughout the course of the next year. And that starts in earnest next week with a series of events led by Secretary Rollins in Pennsylvania and other states. That will follow by numerous events throughout the country at schools, VA clinics, farms, hospitals, and many other locations as we kick off a 2026 Dietary Guidelines for America Roadshow. More details to come, and with that, I want to thank everybody for coming today, but before we do that, we're going to call everybody, all of today's speakers, back to the stage. We're going to ask everyone to stand here, and we're going to do one last picture as we close out the celebration of these new dietary guidelines for Americans. Thanks, everyone.
Hello. Good to see you. Hello. Good to see you.
You did so good up there, sweetie. Good luck to you.
Hi, it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm joined today with my colleague Brooke Rollins, who's the USDA Secretary. Thanks to President Trump's Make America Healthy Again agenda, we are finding solutions across the government to reverse the childhood chronic disease epidemic. Thank you very much. Today we released our Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy, the most significant reform agenda to our food and healthcare policies in modern history. The Commission's message